Okay, um, my name's Nick Michalski, and this is going to be the critique video for the text poster. And I'm going to start with my 5 inspiration things that I found online while researching for this. And this was the first one, and I pulled this one out just because I like the organization and I like the very lack of color that there is, and I like that it uses a lot of different fonts in like one piece, and it doesn't look like jarring or anything. It really works well together. And the second one, this is really low res, but I saw it and I thought that the use of color here was also really good. It's a nice like gradation between the top and the bottom, and it kind of leads your eye down it, through it, and then out of it. So I thought there was good flow in this one. This one, again, I liked because of the color palette and the idea that all these different texts were kind of framing something that was central. And then this one was very monochrome in the sense that it only had one primary color, and that kind of was the centerpiece. I like this one because they were able to make an interesting design with probably using like the shape thing that we learned about on how you can kind of make the words fit inside of a specific shape that you create. And in this sense, it kind of looks like, you know, different lights being cast all in the same area. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then this one being my final one, it was just kind of an interesting like picture frame set, but I kind of like this one on the right of this idea that the O just continues to keep getting smaller, and it kind of frames the text inside, but it also kind of leads your eye down to this bottom because the O just keeps getting smaller. And these ones were interesting too, but I particularly was drawn to this one on the right. Okay, so for my quote this week, I was going to do a Bible verse, and so I ended up going with one from Luke, kind of about how to handle confrontation. Luke was obviously an apostle, so you know, he was preaching, you know, being good to your neighbor, and you know, more of an uplifting kind of sense to it. So something more soft and bright, and you know, probably this is going to be more of a warm piece. So the imagery I thought I was going to use was probably something of the warmer color, probably some crosses or something to kind of like reinforce the whole religious idea behind it. And so these were kind of my 4 ideas. I went about, you know, moving my through the 4 levels in different ways, kind of around crosses, and I kind of just played around with different ideas, and ultimately I kind of like the top right one the most, this idea that you have like these 4-sided shapes with the cross going through them, almost resembling like some sort of like flag. But that wasn't exactly what I was going for, but I kind of like the overall shape of that, and the idea that you start up with like confrontation, and then you move down to, you know, how should we act, and then you get the quote from Luke, and then finally your eye kind of leaves the piece right over here, which would be the smallest text, which is just saying, you know, where it is in the Bible and who said it. So if we move over to this is what I've got so far. So I started with like, I wanted to have like a wrinkled piece of paper in the background, and this was a little bit rough. I didn't want it to be as obvious, so I put a smart filter on it to soften it a little bit. Not a huge difference, but it definitely takes some of those marks out of there. And then I added some lightness to it, so that there's definitely still the wrinkles, but you know, it's not as obvious. It's not popping out. It's definitely not the centerpiece. And then I added in 2 shapes, and then I put 2 crosses over that and made that a smart object that I can kind of edit separately. And then I use the I'm not sure what the command was, but basically this sky thing, I can basically attach it to the cross so that you don't see all of the image, but you do see, because if we click on this, you'd see that this was like the whole image, but I have it only coming through the crosses. I forget what the command is called, but that was kind of like the warm vibe I was going for. And I kind of like that this cross over here was a bit brighter than this one, in terms of like it being more yellow and darker down here. And so that kind of pops out a little bit more, and so your eye naturally starts up here. And then I start putting in the text. This was the text for this one was Corbel bold, and then I went down to the bottom middle. How are we called to act? And then the actual quote up here, and then you kind of leave with the tag of Luke 6:27 through 28. And so the idea was that your eyes started up here with like, okay, we're going to be handling confrontation, and then you kind of move down the white space and how are we called to act, and then you get up here to the actual quote. And I kind of used the letting and kerning to space this out so that it takes you a little bit more time to read it. It's a little bit slower. You're supposed to read through it slower than reading maybe handling confrontation. And then finally your eye leaves over here. So if you guys have any suggestions on stuff that I could change, or how you think it looks so far, or if you think the flow is working all right, just let me know. I appreciate it. Thanks.